Hey everybody, Kris Gethin here. Now, if you're over the age of 35, like myself, your enzyme levels have already begun to decline. Enzymes are the workhorses of digestion. They break down your food into usable macro and micronutrients. Now, research shows that the time that someone hits 65 years old, their saliva and pancreatic secretions, both of which involved in enzyme activity, have declined by as much as 50%. Now, if you've looked at my Instagram posts, my stories, you'll notice that quite often if I'm eating out, if I'm having a steak or something like that, I am eating my Masszymes by Bioptimizers. Now, the reason why I take this is because it has over 102% more proteins than the nearest competitor and 300 to 500 more per serving the most popular brands. Now, this is crucial because as us being bodybuilders or athletes, we require a lot of protein. And it isn't just about how much you eat, it's always how much you absorb. So you got to break it down. So not only does the Masszymes contain more proteins, it also contains 13 additional enzymes, including lipase for fat digestion, which work at a very high pH level from 2 to 12. In other words, at every state of digestion. So you can try this right now today, risk-free. Their 365-day full money-back guarantee is the gold standard. So if you feel that Masszymes are going to help you upgrade your digestion like mine and power through your food, their support team will give you a no-question-asked refund. And when you go to masszymes.com/Kris20, be sure to enter that coupon code Kris20 to receive a 20% discount off that order. Hey everybody, Kris Gethin here, and welcome back to another episode of the Knowledge and Mileage podcast. On the show today, we have a guy that if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see he's filling up my screen here. It feels like he sat on my lap almost. And that is IFBB Pro, Fouad Abiad, and Cage Muscle Athlete. Welcome to the show, brother.
How's it going, Kris? Good to be on.
All is great, man. And like I said, as soon as you came on the screen, it's like, wow, holy shit, you are some sort of size. What sort of weight are you holding out at the moment?
I was actually just stepped on the scale now. I was 305. My morning weight is 301 on an empty stomach.
305 at the moment.
It's tough. It's not.
Yeah, it does sound easy.
I mean, a lot of bodybuilders. I mean, it depends who's watching, right? But the bodybuilders that are watching would look at that and think, wow, I wish I could be 305. The ones that are trying to gain size, right? It's one of those things that be careful what you wish for, because it's not comfortable being this weight.
What is the biggest problem with being that weight that you find when it comes to everyday things, not just working out?
Well, everyday things is just honestly just moving around. I don't fit into the clothes I like to wear. I actually have like two separate wardrobes. I have like an off-season wardrobe and a pre-contest wardrobe, and even the off-season wardrobe right now is not fitting right. So
I bet they both look identical.
They do actually. They look good. No, the off-season wardrobe is more like jogging pants and t-shirts. Fitting into clothes, just going up and down the stairs. I mean, everything is. You got to imagine if your comfortable body weight, or my comfortable body weight is 260, I'm holding, it's like walking around with a 50-pound backpack or a 40-pound backpack on your back all day long. So it's not an easy thing. And then in a more health conscious manner, when I was younger, I didn't care how heavy I got or what I felt like or anything like that. I didn't really think about things. I've learned so much over the course of my career that I'm not worried about those things, like not being able to fit into my clothes. I worry that this is putting a lot of stress on my body. So I don't want to make too long of an off season out of it, because I don't feel like it's healthy to be holding this kind of weight for months on end.
Sure. Okay, well, let me speak upon that for a second then, because what people, especially from the outside world, they would look at what bodybuilders do and they would say, wow, that is so unhealthy. What's your perspective on that? Because like I see what you do, of course, to a certain degree, being over 305, yeah, it's going to have some stress, but you eat a lot of plant matter. You eat low fat protein sources. And when you do have your fats, you go for your anti-inflammatory, like your omega-6s, your high EPAs, DHAs. So what is your perspective on, the lifestyle that you live and the food that you include? Is it healthy or not?
Well, it's tough. I want to be a good ambassador for the sport, but I also, if you want to call it a sport or a lifestyle, however you want to call it, but I also am very, very true to people that follow me. So I have to be honest, and the honest truth is bodybuilding itself at the most extreme level is not a healthy endeavor. Like what I'm doing is not optimal for health and longevity in life. So we kind of take a risk, right? But we try and minimize or mitigate that risk by adding things like by getting my food from quality sources instead of just shoveling a bunch of calories into my mouth, right? So it's about making the proper choices to help mitigate the risk as much as possible. So that's kind of where I'm at. So bodybuilding in general, at the extreme level that I'm at the professional level, isn't necessarily the best thing for a person to be doing. But because I love the sport so much and because of my competitive nature, I want to do it, so I try and mitigate risk by eating the right foods, getting regular checkups from my doctor, and also not letting myself be this weight for too long. So I'll do it for a few months, and then I feel like I put on enough muscle in that time. I'll get into a contest diet, which I do think can be very healthy if it's done properly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always find it funny. It's a battle going back and forth, especially when you look at what happens outside or the mainstream consumer. When, of course, they're going to have some drinks every now and again. They're going to eat fast food. They're not going to go to the gym as often as somebody that you would. So, it all depends what you're looking at. It's a lot of the time people don't point the finger at those. Yeah. However, but because you look a certain way, it's an easy target.
Of course, yeah. No, definitely. I'll tell you, I had a life before bodybuilding. Actually, during my early years of bodybuilding, I did a lot of partying. So before I realized what I was doing to my body and how it was affecting my performance in the gym, I thought it was okay to go out on the weekend and have my binge drinking sessions and, party with the guys and do all these things 2 nights a week, 3 nights a week. Sometimes it was pretty rough. But I was having fun. I was in my early 20s. I didn't know any better. That I feel is more detrimental to your health than what I'm doing personally. Yeah. That's just my personal opinion. The guys, I know a lot of guys from high school, for example, that are out on the weekends and they're, they don't do what I do. They're not bodybuilders, but they're out partying and using recreational drugs and they're drinking and it's not social drinking. I mean, they're binge drinking, right? So I don't know if they're in any better situation than I am. So I guess if you have to pick your poison, at least I get to live my passion out, is the way I see it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, you said you had a life before bodybuilding. So from what I remember, you actually started bodybuilding around 21 years old, correct? So what were you doing before then? Were you actually participating in any sports? Or did you what sort of job did you have then?
It's kind of funny. In my teenage years, I worked at a pizza place, and that actually helped me gain all the weight I used when I played football. So I used to play soccer at a very young age, and then in high school, I was an all-city football player, and I put on quite a bit of weight. I was about 235 pounds in grade 11, and it wasn't like a good 235. It was like an offensive lineman 235. So that's what I did, and when school ended, I got letters from some of the schools that were higher up, but I'm a realist, and I know at 5'9", I'm not going to make it to the NFL at this height. It's just not, they don't recruit guys that are 5'9". So I didn't want to waste time playing football if it wasn't going to lead to anything. And then I kind of just fell into bodybuilding by accident. Like it wasn't a planned thing. I just kind of needed a competitive outlet. And when I found it, I was like, hey, this looks kind of fun. So I wasn't a fan of bodybuilding. I wasn't a fan of the look. I used to see the magazines with like Dorian Yates on them or, NASA or whoever. I didn't think it was cool. But when I started doing it, it was a different story. I just kind of got hooked on it. So, but football was my pre-bodybuilding competitive outlet.
Got it. So when you actually started bodybuilding then and competing, is that when you kind of said, okay, now I'm just going to give up the alcohol and the bad food and really focus? Did you see that you had potential to really do something with this?
Not at first. Let's see here. It's kind of a tough question. I thought I had potential after the first couple shows. I won my first 2 shows. So I thought I had some potential, but I was really caught up in the party life at the same time. So I kind of made them work together, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense because I was kind of there myself.
Yeah, my coach at the time was like, look, if you're going to drink dry red wine, because there's no sugar in it. So my solution to going out on the weekend was, I'll drink dry red wine, and that's how I can have fun. And
that must have given you a crazy hangover, didn't it? Oh, I couldn't imagine having that every weekend.
Yeah, the next day was rough. But I did that for a little while, and then, I had my off seasons where I had my fun, and then I would shut it down come time when I prepped as I got more serious. And then as I got extremely serious, I was like, okay, this is kind of just got to be a special occasion kind of thing. And actually now I haven't had a drink. I mean, I might have had a social drink here and there, but I haven't been drunk in a couple of years, maybe a year.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I met you. It must have been like 2006. Was it just you won the nationals in 2006? Correct. Was it then that you came down to LA for Flex magazine? Was it Flex magazine that flew you down, or you were down there and we covered you during that weekend? Greg Merritt did, I think.
I think that was 2000. I think that was before I turned pro.
Oh, was it just before you turned pro, was it?
I think that was the year before. I think it was 2005.
Wow, okay.
I think I had flown down to do a video series, and I did something with Flex while I was down there.
That's right, yeah. So
yeah.
we did something with Greg. So I remember back then, you seemed very grounded, you seemed humble, but you seemed very motivated then to kind of know exactly what you wanted, where you wanted to go. Did you think then, at that point, that this could be a career?
Yes. I kind of put myself in a box on purpose. I was in school. I was in university after high school studying to be a police officer, actually. And I decided halfway through school, I mean, look, there's a lot of things that go into it. I had a lot of social anxiety and things that really played into my mental state at the time. I battled with that for a long time, but at the time, school didn't feel comfortable. I didn't feel comfortable being around all those people. Didn't feel like home. So I spent a lot of time at work, at the club I used to bounce at. And then I used to spend time in the gym. And the gym always felt comfortable because it was my own kind of solitude. It was kind of my place where I went to meditate and do my thing. After I won my first couple shows, that gym atmosphere felt so good that I was like, I want to make this I want to be here. Like, this is what I want to do for a living. This feels comfortable, feels right. I don't know, in life, sometimes you just know when you're somewhere that it feels like where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, it's somewhere you feel like you belong.
Yeah, and I think the gym felt like that. And I wasn't alone. I had like other friends that were bodybuilding too, but it just felt like I wanted to make that my life. So I left school after 2 years. And I said, this is what I'm doing. And actually, I had a job after school working for my brother in sales, making quite a bit of money for a person that's 23 years old. I had a company car and a computer and a phone and a whole bit. And as a 23-year-old, it was a lot of perks. They made me decide. They're like, you got to bodybuild or you got to take this job. And I said, I'm leaving. So I left that job as well. And I remember leaving quite a few pretty significant jobs that were paying quite a bit of money at the time that just didn't coincide with my bodybuilding dreams. Because I knew I'm going to put all my eggs in one. There's a saying that says if you chase 2 rabbits, you lose both. I'm sure you've heard it.
Yeah.
That's kind of how I lived my whole life. So I just focused on the one thing. I'm like, I'm going to focus on this thing. I think I can get my pro card. And at the time, the whole thing was get your pro card and then you'll get a contract. Things are a little different now.
Yeah.
but I was like, I think I can turn pro, and I think I can be a decent pro. This is what I want to do. And I kind of forced it. Like, I just made everything about that. And I kind of cut anything and everything out of my life that hindered that progress in any way. And then here I am. So
it paid off. So as soon as you turned pro, did you get a contract, and then all of a sudden were you making a living, a career out of this?
Yeah, at the time, this is before the recession in 2008. So companies were offering, good contracts for, first level pros. I think my first contract, I mean, I don't mind being specific. I think my first contract was at $50,000 a year. So, I mean, for a first year pro that hasn't done anything yet, that's kind of unheard of now. You can't get that unless, you have 1 million followers or something. Like, you have to have some other thing that goes with it.
Yeah.
But at the time, they were like, yeah, we'll take a chance on you. And they gave me a 2-year contract. And that was when I started. And that was it. I just kind of started working and started doing photo shoots and started doing appearances. And it's kind of just turned into my life. It was just felt natural.
Right. And were you doing anything else surrounding the industry other than that? Like, most bodybuilders do personal training. Was that something that you slipped into pretty much straight away because it was a natural progression?
I did personal training before I turned pro because I needed money. So I did some personal training before, but I really, really hated it. I always told myself, and this is my own personal feeling. It's not a knock on any personal trainers, but I never wanted to be a personal trainer. I didn't want to count reps for other people. That's not my thing. Like, I told myself the only way I would enjoy being a personal trainer is if it was my own gym. Like, if I owned my own place and I was a personal trainer at that gym, then that would be amazing. But to just go to somebody else's gym and be a personal trainer is not anything I ever wanted to do. And one of the things I have failed at, because I'm so narrow-minded in my vision, is I failed at the business of bodybuilding. So what I mean by that is, after I turned pro, I would do things like, do the t-shirt thing. I'd do some online coaching, maybe do an ebook here or there, maybe do some appearances or seminar here or there or whatever. I don't think I ever attacked that the way I attacked the competitive side of bodybuilding. So it's kind of something I'm just trying to get my bearings in now. It's not late, but it's not too late, but it's late. Like, these are all things I'm doing now that I should have done 10 years ago. So when I got my contract, that's all I wanted. I was like, I just want the contract. I would do things here and there to make a little extra money. Like, I would do some online coaching. I've had an online coaching business since 2006, but I come and go with, like, my clients. Like, I'll take on a bunch of people, and then as they fade off and kind of start doing their own thing, I won't bring on more. I'll be like, I need a little break from that. Whereas most online coaches, people that have online businesses, will keep growing their clientele till it's such a size that they'll have other trainers come help them, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Or I'll come up with a t-shirt and it'll sell out, and then I won't do another t-shirt for like another year, which is, you know what I mean? So It's just really, really sporadic and immature. Like, I wasn't very diligent at the business of bodybuilding, which is something I regret, definitely.
Yeah, but in saying that, you can have that regret, because I'm the same thing. Like, I remember when I moved here to Boise, Idaho, and I started working at bodybuilding.com, and after a couple of years, they said, you should really get a fan page. I'm like, a fan page? Who the hell has one of them? I ain't gonna have a fan page. But after a while, I got pushed into it. And then, again, later, you're like, man, I could have created that. But in your perspective, maybe you wouldn't have been as successful as a pro if you had put the focus in, some of those other things. Because a lot of people will put a focus into these other areas until they are successful at it. But then the bodybuilding kind of takes a back seat. So maybe you've done it the right way. Maybe there's no regret.
Is it possible? I mean, I don't actually have any regret, like true regret, but I will say, when I look at the people who've done it right, I look at people like Jay Cutler. Yeah. I mean, if Jay Cutler can win, 4 Mr. Olympias and have such a thriving business. I never won an Arnold or an Olympia, so there's no reason why I couldn't have, if he can manage it, I should have been able to manage it. Now, That doesn't mean there isn't exterior sources helping him or anything like that, but not everybody's equal. But when I look at people like Jay Cutler, I look at Flex Lewis, or I look at some of the people that have kind of mastered, or yourself even, kind of mastered the outside, the exterior businesses in bodybuilding, if that's how you want to call them, right? Like, yeah. Or for me, because I'm a competitive bodybuilder, it would be the secondary businesses. I just feel like there's no excuse. Like, it should have been something I focused on. But I also know that there's no looking back or beating yourself up. So it's something I'm kind of trying to focus on now.
Yeah, exactly. And there's always time. Like, you look at, for instance, Dorian Yates. He was not thinking about any type of business while he was competing as a bodybuilder. But then after, he did retire, there was a little bit of business, then there was a lot of partying, and then there's back to business a little bit, just enough to, for him to live the lifestyle that he lives now. So, it's never too late to do something great, is it?
Yeah, no, and that's kind of where we're headed now. Actually, that's one of the reasons I'm happy to be with Cage, just because we started doing these trainers, and it's kind of forced me outside the box a little bit, and it taught me how to do more outside of just competing. Like, yeah, answering all these people that are doing the trainers and kind of just putting the trainers together, and it's a whole other job in itself. So I'm appreciative for the fact that it's kind of teaching me how to, juggle more than one plate, you know what I mean? Keep everything moving at the same time.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, that's cool. All right. Well, anyway, so before I go on to a couple of questions here, what I really like is, some of those clothes that you put out there, maybe they're not back in stock now, is that hashtag, and that's something that you put out there, and that's dying breed. Do you want to tell me about where that came from and what that means to you?
I should have made, when I think of that, I should have put different breed, because I don't feel like it's a breed that'll ever die. But what it's supposed to mean, when I started bodybuilding, like yourself back in the day, it was just, there wasn't all these competitive outlets. You were either bodybuilding or you were in fitness. And that was all there was to it when I started. And there was no social media. There was no nothing. It was just, you went to the gym and you trained because you loved to train. Nobody was watching you. Nobody cared. You didn't have to post about it later. And now I really do like social media. I actually find enjoyment in posting things on Instagram and interacting with fans. So it definitely has its benefits. But at the same time, I feel like it's taken away some of the passion. It's kind of made it more about popularity and more about being a star and a celebrity and all these things, instead of being like, it doesn't matter what anybody thinks about me. I just want to go in the gym and train. Mm-hmm. And I feel like those kind of people are a different breed in themselves. Yeah. They're not in it because they want to get 1,000 likes. They're not photoshopping their photos so they look better. If they post photos, it's actually what they really look like. It's just a whole different set of people. And I think maybe I'm not articulating what I mean properly, but for lack of a better word, I don't want to say hardcore, because it's not necessarily hardcore. But it's more people that are just doing it for themselves and doing it because they actually love to be there. Like, I talked to one girl one day at the gym, and I asked her how her training was going, and she said, well, I'm not doing a show right now, so it's kind of boring. Nobody's asking me what I'm doing or how I feel, or no one's asking me about my diet. And I thought, how wonderful is that? That nobody's bugging you. You just get to go to the gym and train. Yeah. And I think that's kind of the difference. That's how I explain it. I don't want the attention. I don't want someone coming up to me to see how I'm doing and how hard are you dieting and are you okay? And no, I just want to do it because I like to do it. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's therapeutic. It's your chance to see what you're made of. See if you can push it bigger than you did before, because what we're trying to do is callous our mind. We're trying to create that scar tissue in us so it strengthens us, because that regular tissue becomes as strong as that scar tissue. And I understand what you mean, because, like you said, you look at bodybuilding back then, it was you guys that would have the massive lines. But now that you'll have some guys that have just got a YouTube channel and everybody's directed there, because we go to the expos and I'm looking at these people, and I'm not, being condescending when I say it, but I haven't heard of any of these people because they haven't stepped on stage and I haven't seen them, on a national stage or a pro stage. It's just how it is. It's the lay of the land. It's very different. And those contracts aren't there. Some of the magazines are folding, as we've seen the emergence of, Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazine. It is a dying breed to a certain extent. But to a certain extent, I really like that. I love being part of that cult. When people were trying to mainstream bodybuilding, a few people came in and they tried their best, coming back from the WWF or the wrestling days where Gary Stridham went over. I think Tom Platz went over as well, and they tried to make a big hoo-ha of it. Then it didn't work, and they've tried it a couple of times, and I was always kind of glad that it didn't work, because in what other sports can we kind of interact with people like yourselves? You can't do that with basketball players and soccer players and stuff, So I kind of like that cult feeling. You go to an expo, you're part of a family, everyone's got mutual respect to each, most people anyway, for each other. And that's what I kind of like. I don't mind it being a dying breed or to a certain cliche.
The thing I've missed the most, I think, is just everybody having the same passion. Because now it's like, and I was on a podcast earlier, and I think I maybe went a little too far with my dislike for men's physique. I don't dislike men's physique, but
you'd like the shorts though. I could see you in those shorts.
I guess my point is, when it becomes mainstream, you have a whole bunch of people in the sport that aren't in it for the sport, but they see an outlet for popularity. And I feel like before, I don't even like calling it a sport. The lifestyle was so small. It was such a small thing that you didn't really enter it unless you loved it. You didn't really get into bodybuilding unless you loved lifting weights, because there wasn't tons of money. There wasn't tons of eyeballs. So you're not doing it for popularity. Most normal people thought we were mental. They're like, what are these guys doing? They're in the gym every day. They're eating chicken out of Tupperware, and they weigh crazy amounts, and there's something wrong with them. But that was what I liked. I liked that it was my thing, not everybody's thing. And I feel like now it's everybody's thing, which is, I want to be inclusive, but I feel like the new generation or the social media generation is missing out on what's great about bodybuilding. It's like when you completely immerse yourself and become committed to something, there's a higher passion that's involved than just, I wonder how many likes I can get. I feel like that diminishes what it's really about. Like, you're totally missing the point about what we're doing if you're only doing it because you want somebody to ask you what your diet was like today.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, part of it is the obsessive compulsive nature of being on mobile devices as well, because it gives you that dopamine fix. Your serotonin releases, you get that dopamine fix. That's why people take them to bed, to make them feel cozy. And, and it's not good because of that addiction. That people are looking every 5 minutes to see how many likes they got, how much interaction, and that's going to dictate if they have a good day or bad day. So when they go to the gym, and unfortunately we're all victims of it, a lot of the time we have to film ourselves because this is the business that we're in now, but we have to find that balance. You have to find that balance, and thankfully we've come from a time before this age, so I believe it's easier for us to find that balance and probably point at other people who haven't, because they've been born into it, and it's a different approach. But I think it's very important that you you switch it off an hour before bed. Do not switch it on for a good 30 minutes until you wake up, and then you can realize, I can live without this. When I started doing a bit of fasting last year, it was empowering for me because I'd gone 20 years without missing a meal. But then all of a sudden, if you put your phone down for a while, you go into a room and you look for it, even though you're on a digital detox. It's the same with food. I was like, oh shit, I haven't got my Tupperware. Where's my cool bag? Oh shit, I've got to leave that at home. And it's quite empowering. It's not something that I practice all the time, but it's empowering. And I think a lot of people need to do that so they can actually self-center themselves and find what their lifeline is really about. And it comes from in here. It isn't external gratification or the instant gratification that they're going to find here,
Yeah. But I think that's the that's the sad part for me, is I think people are looking, where can I get some attention, right? That's why you see all the girls posting certain photos, with their asses out and whatever. It's like, where can I get some attention? And you see girls that have no business doing it. No business. They have no followers. They have no nothing. They're not signed to any contracts. And they just got their ass out. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? If a guy messaged you and said, send me a picture of your ass, you would think he was mental. You'd be like, that guy's a creep. But yet, you're on this thing. And you're not getting paid. You're not getting anything. And your ass is out for millions of people. But that's what I feel like people are missing about bodybuilding, because even the guys are doing it too. They're like, where can I go to get the most attention possible? Oh, there's this men's physique thing. You do a show and you get on stage, and you don't really have to train that long because you don't have to be that big, and you just put on these shorts and you can get on stage and do this thing, and everyone will ask you how you're doing, and people will take photos of you, but you're missing the point. You're missing the point. The whole thing we're doing is trying to create something. That's the point of bodybuilding. It's like a mental, and people think it's just physical. It's like, how much my mind has changed in 20 years? Like, I'm a completely different person than, I'm embarrassed of the 25-year-old Fouad. That guy's, but you learn these things through competing and through adversity. Like, we go and I tear a muscle and then you can't do a show, or you tear a muscle right before a show and you got to compete anyways. And people think these things are physical, but they're not. These things are 100% mental. The muscle will heal itself, but how is my brain going to work when I'm going on stage with not at 100%, and now I have to battle these guys who are at 100%? Can I do that? Am I going to be able to focus and get on stage, or am I going to be terrified? So people don't understand that the beauty of bodybuilding is not just that, we look pretty and we have nice abs. It's that if I go through hell, I'm going to come out the other side a different person. And a lot of people now aren't willing to go through hell. They just want the picture taken. They want the followers. They want a contract with some company, and they don't want to go through hell to get it. They just want the instant gratification, and that's what it is now.
Yeah.
So it's sad to me, not because more people are involved or whatever dumb thing they're doing. It's sad to me because I just want to shake people and go, "You're missing out. You're missing out on the beauty of it." So I get really passionate about the lifestyle because it's done so much for me, and people see it as this superficial thing, like, oh, you're just trying to look big and so you can scare people, or so because you think you're better. And I'm like, you're missing. You don't know. You don't know.
Yeah, I know exactly where you're coming from, because and a lot of people will say, well, how do you stay motivated? Well, they don't understand that it's a necessity. It's something that you have to do, because like you say, you're conditioning yourself, but you want to be better, not just in the gym, but what you can in life with what you're going to do to callous your brain. Because the more adversity or stress or pain that you go through, the stronger that you're going to become, and you can take whatever life kind of throws at you. And that's one thing that I want to speak about a little bit, is your mental persistence and tenacity to just keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it, because you don't compete that often, really. It's not as if, okay, I'm getting ready for one show, then another show, then another show. No, you've got a long gap, and usually people need a sense of urgency, like, your 8-week diet or your 12-week program, as opposed to, hey, I'm going to do this for 2 or 3 years and then maybe I'll see if I'll compete. You have to be very, very motivated to do that. Now, I sit here and I look at you, and just for the listeners, there's the top 3, people at the Mr. Olympia. What are we talking now? Sean Roden, these guys, what are they, about 240, 245 pounds? So you got Fouad here, is 300 pounds at the moment. He's a big guy, a huge guy. Now, I, for one, I don't want to be 300 pounds. I wouldn't be able to get to 300 pounds. I wouldn't be able to stand on a national stage. But what I do like is that I will look to you for inspiration. It's motivating to me to see that you persist and you push yourself through injury, regardless if there's a show or not, and you just keep carrying on. How old are you now, Fouad?
Just turned 40.
So how many more years would you say that you're going to compete for, do you think?
I mean, that depends on health, right?
Yeah.
If I can keep, I'll speak about this just like other athletes do. As long as I'm competitive, I'll keep competing. But even if I'm not competing, I don't think I'll ever stop training.
Yeah. So what is it? Like, let's just talk about some of your injuries that you've had so far. Can you name them off for me?
The worst ones are probably my teres major under my armpit, my quadricep, and my hamstring I tore twice, and then I have a lot of little tears. No, thankfully, I have had two bulge discs in the past. Thankfully, nothing extremely serious like a blown out knee or anything like that. Knock on wood.
Yeah.
So,
but some of these injuries are pretty severe. So
yeah.
what is it that just keeps you motivated? Because like I've witnessed you actually tear a muscle. You talked about it online, whatever. But I don't know what's going on inside. But you seem so positive for the future, knowing that you will persevere, that you will get through this. This is just another battle road that you are going to get yourself through. What is it inside of you that just pushes you more and more to consistently persevere regardless of what happens?
It's a couple things. There's a few different things at play here. A therapist told me once, and this is it's not a cliche, but it's a common held belief that if you quit something once, you'll quit. It makes it easier to quit time and time again. Earlier on in my career, I had quite a bit of self-sabotage. So my mind would that same therapist told me that my mind was extremely powerful and that it hurts and helps me. So it's helped me in a way that it allows me to focus 100% on bodybuilding and get to where I've gotten. But it hurts me in a sense that once I have a negative thought in my mind, it sticks. So, for example, I'll give you an example of self-sabotage. 2011, I beat Dennis Wolf at the Flex Pro, and now I'm in third place behind Dexter Jackson, Evan Senapani, and people are like, okay, he finally arrived. Because before that, people were like, this kid's got a lot of potential, blah, blah, blah. When I placed there, that was when I got my Weeder contract, and people were like, okay, this kid's going to do big things. The Arnold Classic was 2 weeks later, and they're like, my coach was like, you should probably do the Arnold Classic. And I'm like, I don't know, my stock's pretty high right now. I think I should sit it out and just ride the wave for a little bit, let people talk the way they want to talk, and then just go with that third place third place at the Flex Pro because it was a good placing. Talks me into doing it. But in my mind, I'm already set that I'm not going to do well. So I'm dieting. I get to the show. A few days before the show, I start cheating on my diet. We're carb loading for the show, and I'm thinking to myself, I need to carb load more. So I start eating more than he's telling me. But it's not going well because I don't need to eat more. I'm just self-sabotaging because I need an excuse as to why I didn't do well. So I get to the stage and I've spilled over, so now I'm a little heavier than I want to be. For those that don't know bodybuilding, it means my conditioning is not as good and I look soft on stage. I don't look completely lean, skin and muscle. Now it looks like there's a layer of water underneath my skin. And I end up taking 11th, I think. In my mind, I told myself, well, I wasn't in shape, that's why I took 11th. But later, I couldn't sleep because I knew I put that there on purpose so that I'd have an excuse. Because I didn't want to see what would happen if I was just at my best. Because if you're at your best and you lose, then it's a shitty feeling. You don't want to go somewhere at your absolute 100% best and be last. Because then you're like, holy shit, that was everything I could give. And it wasn't enough. So I purposely put this thing there to give myself an excuse, but everybody else may hear the excuse, but in your brain, it's there. You know you lied. You know you lied to yourself. So fast forward this many years, from 2011 to now, I've had some tears getting ready for shows and things, and I promised myself back then when I self-sabotaged, I would never do it again to myself. Because it's hard to go to sleep at night when you know you did that to yourself. Mm. So now when things happen, I'm like, no, unless you can't walk, you're going. So that's it. I don't stop now. I don't, if I have a tear, it's too bad. I'm going to overcome it. I'm going to get to where I got to go. Even if it means, like at the Arnold's, I didn't look my best. My legs were flat because I couldn't train legs. And I ended up just looking not great at all. I took sixth and I was like, this is horrible. But I could sleep the next day because I knew that was a real excuse. It wasn't fabricated. I didn't make it up to make myself feel better. I was actually not at my best. So it didn't hurt my feelings the next day. So that's one aspect that keeps me pressing forward even in times of adversity. But the other thing is more on a more normal basis is I just want to get better. I always have this belief that I can get better. And some people would say, well, you're 40, you can't get better now. You're probably on the downward spiral of your career or downhill of your career. And I'm like, why? I weigh 305 pounds right now. And who's telling me I'm on my down? Like, I could still step on stage at 260. We don't know if it's going to be a good 260 or a bad 260, but I don't want to guess. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying.
I don't want to guess that it's going to be a shitty 260. I want to do it, and I want to do it the best I can. And if it's a shitty 260 with my all-out effort, I'll accept that. But what I won't accept is stopping ahead of time because somebody said, you might not look that great. But I don't believe that. I got to prove it to myself. So that's the second desire. The third thing is, it's just something I love. Like if you love reading books, you don't stop reading books one day. You know what I mean? As long as you can read, you're going to keep reading books.
Yeah, I think what it comes from a lot of people is like the book reading is a little bit more comfortable. With bodybuilding, it is the hardest sport out there. You call it a lifestyle, but it's like, okay, you've got that hour or hour and a half or whatever of pain in the gym. Now you've got a lot of other pain to deal with. The hunger pain, warding off cravings, the social. Well, you have social anxiety anyway, so it's easier for you to say, hey, I don't want to socialize.
Let me ask you this. Where have your biggest rewards in life come from?
My biggest rewards is kind of what I've achieved with my physique, because that has led to other achievements outside of the gym. Because
sorry, I don't want to interrupt, but what I mean is like outside of the gym or inside of the gym, the best feelings or best things in your life, don't they usually come after pain?
Oh, yeah, of course. No doubt.
But that's what I'm getting at. I get to feel that every day.
Got it. Understood.
See, it's a small victory, but they don't all have to be, I finished 8 weeks and I lost 40 pounds. They don't all have to be those kind of victories. For me, I get a lot of enjoyment in waking up in the morning and being scared to go train legs and then finishing. And then I'm like, I just finished the crazy leg workout. I feel amazing.
Yeah. I know exactly how you feel there. I remember a couple of times my hand shaking when I was writing out my leg workout, knowing exactly what I was going to put myself through. And there's nothing I can do about it. It's like an out-of-body experience.
Yeah, it's exactly it. Me and my training partner left the gym. Was it yesterday I trained legs? Yeah, it was yesterday. I said, and we were kind of both tired when we walked in. We finished, we get in my truck, I'm driving him home, and I go, I don't know what just happened. I go, what just happened? I go, we got to the gym, and now I'm sweaty. I don't know what the last hour, I don't know what we did. You kind of black out.
Yeah.
But that's a feeling I don't think people on a regular basis have, because they don't put themselves in those positions. Everything's just comfortable. So there's no high and low. It's just, everything's just great. For me, I enjoy the high and low. I wake up in the morning, I'm freaking out. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to go through pain. Then I get to go push myself past that pain. And when I'm done, I get to feel great. Why would I stop doing that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
there's nothing else that can give me that satisfaction, I guess. Yeah, it's like when you run a marathon, right? How amazing do you feel when you're done?
Oh yeah, when you can move, it feels great. And it's the same sort of thing. You want to get comfortable being uncomfortable, because when you do, like you said, that's why 5 times a week I don't care if it's cold outside. When I come in, I'm taking a cold shower, because in this day and age, it is very easy for us to be comforted by all of our modern gadgets and air conditioning or whatever. But, like I always say, I want to be hard to kill. I don't want to be easy to kill. So yeah, I'll go do a marathon. It isn't going to be for my health. I'll do an Ironman. That's not for my health either. It's to see what I'm made of and to, make myself harder to kill. And that's the same exactly why we go to the gym every day. Yeah, it's the AA batteries. I know the blood flow to my brain is going to make me feel better. Like, I'm an uneducated person. I failed at school terribly. Yeah. But now my brain functions so much more, especially something within this industry. I'm able to retain it. Yeah. So I'm like, wow, I'm going to go to school every day. And that's every day that I walk in the gym, and I love that effect.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing. I mean, look, it's not for everybody. I don't think everybody wants to go through a hard leg day and be sore and have trouble walking up and down the stairs. And plus, people have other obligations, man. They have kids, they have full-time jobs, they have all these things. I loved this so much that I made it my full-time job. I was like, this is what I want to do. How can I figure out how to get paid to do this? Because I don't want to stop. So I don't blame someone when they're like, I don't want to be sore because I got to go take my kid to the park, or I got to do, I got to go sit in an office or work at a factory for 8 hours. I don't necessarily blame them for not being able to understand. But it's the only way I can explain it is I get that reward is what I want. And you know what? I've tried not going to the gym. It's just in me. It's like I can't. If I skip, I try to force myself to skip a week. I made it 4 days.
Yeah, that was my challenge last year, and I survived it. 7 months of not training. I had my shoulder surgery, and I thought, okay, what is going to challenge me now? Okay, I'm getting ready for these endurance events. Did another Ironman, but I thought, okay, my next challenge is to see if I could stop training. And I did that. I'm starting to get back into it now, but I thought, well, that's another way that I can get out of my comfort zone and get comfortable being uncomfortable. So going back to, like I said, I would never want to be 300 pounds, but I like to get the chapters from you that I can take upon myself to evolve. Do you think that someone like me makes up the majority of the people that follow you? Because on your socials, I find that you have great interaction. You have a good, loyal following. Now, are they people that are competitive bodybuilders or people that just want to learn from you?
No, actually, I think the amount of competitive bodybuilders in my following is very small. The thing about bodybuilding that I love is, okay, I'm at the highest level of this sport or lifestyle, whatever you want to call it. I'm at the highest level. Somebody else could be starting tomorrow. If we both do a contest diet, we feel the same. I don't feel any better than he does. I'm just as hungry as he is. The difference is he may not expect it. I kind of know it's coming. But we're both still suffering. You know what I mean? Like, when we finish a leg day, we're both still sore. It's not any different. So the beauty of this is I can relate to everybody. When I'm on my Instagram, I can talk to the guy who just started. I can talk to the guy who's 5 years in. I can talk to the guy who's 20 years in. It doesn't matter. We all kind of we all experience the same hunger. If I write something about being stuffed in the off season and force feeding, I'll get 100 comments from people who felt the same thing. So no, I don't think. I think my fan base is more guys that really want to make a change. Some are competitive, some aren't. Probably more or not. But I think people gravitate towards me because they can relate. I don't bullshit. Like, if I'm on my Instagram, I'm like, today sucked. I missed 2 meals. I got to start over tomorrow. They're like, shit, I felt like that too. I didn't realize that guy at that level feels the way I feel. So I think I have a good rapport with them because we connect. It doesn't matter if I'm up here and they're starting. We just connect. So, I don't know.
So, I think the social platforms to a certain degree work very well for you, especially if you said that you have a little bit of social anxiety anyway, maybe that be at an expo or whatever. You have a platform, or if you're doing a seminar, you get to talk to people instead of being in a room with them. And Speaking of which, do you find it hard to hang out with people who aren't in the fitness industry or don't have anything related to bodybuilding? Do you find it a little bit hard to hang out and chat with these people?
Um,
Do you hang out with
I'm
people
trying.
outside of the bodybuilding lifestyle other
I'm
than your
trying to.
family?
I'm trying to think right now, and honestly, outside of my family, I don't. That doesn't mean I can't get along with people outside of like I have good relationships with different videographers and people that are in totally different spaces, the artists or whatever. But no, my immediate friends are all in my space. But it kind of has to be. I mean, I think the average person doesn't understand that I can't go for a drink on a weekend.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So it's like, I don't feel bad about that because I didn't specifically pick, oh, you work out, so I want to hang out with you. That's not how it works. Like, I don't have any prejudice to anybody who doesn't work out or train or isn't huge or anything like that. It just kind of, that's how it gravitates, right? People who kind of do the same thing kind of gravitate together, but it's definitely not like I know some people look at it negatively, like, oh, look at those guys. They hang out together because they think they're better than everybody and they're bigger and whatever. I need to let people know it's not like that. It's just, if I say to the average person, hey, it's meal 3, let's go grab a burger, and we go, and then 2 hours later, I'm like, hey, it's meal 4, I want to get another burger. They're like, are you crazy? We just ate a burger. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like, it's easier to hang out with people like me because I can go for a burger and then go for another one 2 hours later, and it makes sense.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you're saying. That's a good perspective to put upon it. It's a good analogy. Let me ask you this question. When was the last time you ever flew economy?
Holy shit. I flew economy for I was with a clothing company that I used to go to a few different expos for, and they used to always fly me economy. And I'm talking like 8-hour flights, 10-hour flights, 13-hour flights. Luckily, most stewardesses or stewards are very, very passionate about someone my size. So they would always, unless the flight was full, which didn't happen very often, they would always kind of bring me to the back and let me sit in a seat with an open seat next to it. So I manage. It's not comfortable.
It's definitely not comfortable for the person next to you.
Well, luckily my wife is small. So if I'm going somewhere, usually she's coming with me and I just kind of lean on her.
Man, I bet she hates flying with you.
You know, you know what? People don't get it, and I'm maybe not all bigger people feel this way, but I'm uncomfortable for them. So like when I'm sitting next to somebody on a plane, if they're uncomfortable, I feel horrible more than they feel uncomfortable because I'm like, I'm really not trying to lean on you, man, but I have nowhere to go. There was a flight I went on to the UK, and I always asked to fly, like, put me in an aisle seat. Somehow I end up in the middle between these two old ladies. Yeah. They're like, honestly, like 60 years old each. And I'm like, holy shit. They're small, but they're old. And I was taught growing up to respect my elders. So I'm like, I can't lean on this person. I can't ask them to do anything. What's the flight to the UK? I think it was 8 hours.
Yeah, 8 hours.
I literally flew like this. I held my arms together and leaned forward in the seat so that they could both sit back and be comfortable. It was the worst flight of my entire life. Like, I could barely move when I got there. But I feel, like I said, I feel worse for the people that have to sit next to me than I do being uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So
yeah, I couldn't imagine that because I've, when I'm going through my muscle building phases, I'm usually around 225. And that is uncomfortable for the person next to me. I couldn't even fathom what it must be like being over 300 pounds, being either you or the person next to you.
Yeah. No, it's the worst is when we would fly in Europe from one city in Europe to another, because you always fly on these little planes.
Oh yeah,
and they're usually
like Ryanair.
Yeah, and they're usually like 2 seats per side. So I'd be sitting next to some guy in a business suit, and I'm like kind of leaning on him. I'm like, yeah, it's not great, but what are you gonna do? You gotta get somewhere.
I'm trying to think of that Jamaican bodybuilder. what was his name? Had the most amazing back, and he was a pilot.
Joel Stubbs.
That's it. I was on a plane with him. Thank God I wasn't sat next to him, but I had to take a picture. I asked the person next to him, I said, do you mind if I take a picture of this? Because I was working for, I think it may have been Bodybuilding at the time. He just competed at the Ironman. And it was just the most phenomenal sight. Yeah. And I took that picture because I really felt for the guy next to him. I can
only imagine. Joel's back is
unbelievable.
3 seats in itself. I don't know how he would sit Nakano.
Yeah, that was funny. So let me ask you now. So what are your goals for 2019, Fouad, from a competitive front and from a personal standpoint or business standpoint? I don't know if you've created a vision board. I don't know if you're one of those guys, January, okay, these are my goals. Yeah. Did you write anything down?
No, I should. I used to have a vision board a long time ago, and I realized I don't need it because there's kind of a few things that are just always on there. So I don't have a vision board. Maybe I should write things down, but my goals are pretty simple. You said earlier in the conversation that I don't compete that often. And the thing is, I haven't competed in 2 years, but it's not by choice. It's been kind of a rocky road injury-wise the last couple of years. So before that, I was competing once a year, usually at 2 shows a year or whatever. I want to get back into that. So this year, if I'm healthy, I plan on doing the California Pro in mid-May and the Toronto Pro in June. My ultimate goal is to do the Olympia one more time before I retire. So I did the Olympia in 2008. I qualified 3 other times for it, but never did it. And they always tell you when you qualify, make sure you do it because you might never get a chance again. And I'm like, no, I'll get there again. And now I'm like, holy shit, I got like a year or 2 left. So the ultimate goal is to do the Olympia this year. In case I decide to retire, I'd like to do that, get on that stage one more time. I don't have any delusions of grandeur. I don't think I'm going to win the Olympia or anything like that. But the first time I did the Olympia, I was not at my best. My coach kind of disappeared on me. So I'd like to go and get on that stage and see how I fare. And that's the ultimate goal. The secondary goals are I have some business of bodybuilding things set up that I would like to really be diligent with and be consistent with. Clothing line coming out, a couple ebooks. I believe Cage might want to do another trainer with me. So I really want to kind of master these other things. So,
what about the Arnold Classic stage? Will you jump back on that stage as well? Is that in your eye line?
I wanted to. The problem was this. I had actually started dieting about a month ago. And I was going to get ready for the Arnold Classic because I've never had a problem getting the invite before. I was like, I want to do the show. And they're like, yeah, we'd love to have you, whatever. So I thought it would be the same situation. But this year, 25 people applied. And they only took 12. And they selected them based on their competition history last year. So when they messaged me back, they're like, look, we're really sorry, but you didn't compete last year. So we can't put you above all these other people that applied that did compete. So the Arnold, Ohio is not in the cards this year. That is my favorite show in bodybuilding, though. So hopefully I'll still be competing next year. I'd like to do that show one more time as well.
Got it. Yeah, it'd be awesome to see you back on that stage.
Yeah. So we'll see.
All right. So thank you very much for this interview, Fouad. It's been absolutely awesome. I knew it would be. Could you let our listeners know and viewers where they can find you? Should they have any questions? Should they want to follow you? Should they want to interact with you?
Well, the best place to interact with me usually is Instagram. So my Instagram handle is @Fouad Abiad. Facebook is @Fouad Abiad. YouTube is @Fouad Abiad. So they're all pretty easy. And then my Gmail is just fouadabiad@gmail.com. So as long as you can spell it, you'll have no problem getting a hold of me.
All right. Well, we will put the links in the show notes so people can just click on there and get straight to you.
Perfect.
All right. Well, thank you very much. Really appreciate this, and can't wait to see you back on that stage again, buddy.
Thank you very much for having me on, Chris. I appreciate it.
All right. My pleasure.